let's talk about our screens and the, well, complicated relationships so many of us have with them. Especially for neurodivergent folks, the digital world can feel like this massive contradiction, right? On one hand, it's a lifeline, it's a community, it's a safe space. But on the other, it can be a total minefield of anxiety and distraction. So today, we're going to get into that. We're going to explore this paradox of how our screens can be both a sanctuary and a trap.
So let me just ask you this, straight up. When you pick up your phone, what does it feel like? Does it feel like you're stepping into a safe harbor, a place where you can finally just breathe and regulate yourself? Or does it sometimes feel like you just locked yourself in a cage and you can't quite find the key? And hey, if you're sitting there thinking, yeah, it's both, you are not alone, not even close. For millions of people, the answer is a messy, confusing, it's both. And just knowing that, understanding that paradox, is the first most important step. Okay, let's dive in. So, first things first, let's talk about the good stuff, the sanctuary. Before we get into the problems, it's so important to get why these digital spaces are so appealing in the first place. Because it's not just about killing time. For so many of us, it's a legit, necessary tool for self-regulation. For settlers, and a key idea here is something called sensory curation. Think about it. The real world is a lot. It's loud, it's bright, it's chaotic. But online, you are in control. You set the volume, you control the brightness, you choose the predictable, structured content you want to see. This isn't some kind of weakness. It's a really smart, practical strategy for managing a world that wasn't built for your brain. And look, this is not some weird, niche thing. Not at all. Research shows that a whopping 40% of neurodivergent youth use media specifically for this reason, for sensory curation. So if that's you, you're in very, very good company. It's a completely normal way to navigate the world. For strategists, but what's the science here? Why does this actually work? Well, to really get the strategy behind it, we're going to use a simple but super powerful idea from neuroscience, the window of tolerance. Okay, so think of your nervous system as having three basic zones. Right in the middle, you've got your optimal zone. That's when you feel calm, connected, you can actually think straight. But if you get overstimulated, you can get bumped up into hyperarousal. That's your classic fight or flight mode. Anxious, overwhelmed, yeah. And if you get completely overloaded, you can drop down into hypoarousal. That's the freeze, the shutdown where you just feel numb. So a predictable video game or your favorite comfort show, it can be the perfect thing to gently pull you out of either of those extremes and guide you right back into that calm, optimal zone. But, and this is a big but, here's the other side of the coin. That exact same sanctuary that we need can turn into a trap. And I want to be super clear, this is not an accident, it's by design. Researchers have been looking into this, and they've actually identified this hidden pattern in our lives that they call dopamine scrolling. This isn't just you, chilling and browsing. No, this is the compulsive hunt for the next little hit of interesting content. And it's all driven by our brain's most basic reward system. So how do they actually build this trap? Well, these platforms are literally engineered to hook you. The infinite scroll means you never reach a natural stopping point, like the end of a chapter in a book. The variable rewards, that unpredictable funny video or that amazing post, give you these little random hits of dopamine, which is like textbook for how to form a habit. And of course, the explosion of short-form video has created this hypnotic, endless loop that is incredibly hard to break out of. So this leads to the really crucial question, right? When does this helpful tool start to become harmful? How can we tell in our own lives when we've crossed that line? Okay, this framework is a game changer for understanding that. There are basically two kinds of escapism. On one side, you've got self-expansion. This is the good kind. It's when you're using the internet to learn new things, explore who you are, find a real community. It actually builds you up. But on the other side, you have self-suppression. This is when it gets unhealthy. It's using screens to just numb out, to avoid tough feelings, to ignore what's going on in the real world. And that type of use, that's what strongly predicts a slide into digital addiction. So just take a second and think about your own habits. When you're online, are you mostly expanding your world or are you trying to suppress it? Which story are you living more often than not? And look, this isn't about judging yourself at all. It's just about being aware. Because that awareness, that's everything. Once you recognize the story you're in, you suddenly have the power to start rewriting it. We can actually shift from being just passive consumers of an algorithm to becoming the active authors of our own digital lives. For strategists and social smarts,
And a huge part of this is embracing this fundamental mindset shift that's happening right now. It's moving away from the old, outdated pathology paradigm, which saw being neurodivergent as a problem to be fixed. Instead, we're moving to the neurodiversity paradigm, which sees it for what it is, a natural, valid, and valuable part of human diversity. For people like us, understanding this shift changes everything. It's not about trying to mask and fit in anymore. It's about acceptance, accommodation, and building a real identity. Okay, so what does this look like in practice? What can you actually do? Here's a super simple, totally doable 3-step strategy. Number 1, curate with intent. Seriously, go through and unfollow any account that consistently makes you feel anxious or just bad about yourself. 2, train the machine. Those mute, block, and not interested buttons, they're your new best friends. Use them aggressively. You are actively teaching the algorithm what you want to see. And 3, diversify your feed. If your entire feed is just about the struggles of neurodiversity, it can become its own little echo chamber. Make sure you're actively following your hobbies, your passions, your special interests. For explorers? Now, are you ready for a really cool, kind of hidden connection? What if I told you one of the best models for how to do this, how to resist a system and rewrite the narrative, comes from a place you would never expect? Yeah, let's talk about Star Trek. For social smarts, this is such a great insight. There's this theory that looks at the crew of the Enterprise as these different archetypes of how to resist conformity. You've got Spock, right? The analytical resistor, who just uses pure logic to maintain his own identity. Then you've got Kirk, the executive resistor, who actually challenges the system from inside the power structure. And you have Uhura, the social integrator, who builds community and protects individuality through communication. How cool is that? It just shows there's more than one way to be yourself when you're inside a huge, complex system. And that right there, that's the big idea that ties all of this together. It doesn't matter if you're training an algorithm or getting inspired by a sci-fi show. In every case, you're stepping up and taking on the role of author. You're making a choice to stop being a passive subject of a diagnosis or an algorithm and to start being the active creator of your own story. And really, that's the whole goal. When we consciously start reshaping our stories, both the ones we consume online and the ones we tell ourselves, we reframe the entire concept of what it means to be different. It stops being about what's wrong or what's missing, and it becomes a powerful, meaningful expression of exactly who you are. So I'll leave you with that. The tools are here, the frameworks are here, you have everything you need to start. The only question left is, how are you going to reauthor your story?
If this touched your heart, please subscribe, like, and share it with your family. Save this for more meaningful content ahead.